Simply based.
Censorship for the left. Simply based. There should never be any Ben Shapiro Pope of.
Be careful, because people like that. People love that kind of shit. So we're not doing that.
We're real free speech, baby. We're both wearing black. We got this.
We look like we're ready to rob something. Bomb squad.
Coming off the heels of Chinese.
What is it?
In sci-fi.
Who knows what this is going to be? We're both dressed like we're going to rob a 7-Eleven. This wasn't planned, but it just happened that way.
I feel like that's exactly what two robbers would say to each other if they were planning on robbing a 7-Eleven together, because no one's wearing black. You're robbing something, it doesn't matter. Just wear a low hat.
Hey, what are you gonna wear? What are you gonna wear to the robbery? What color's your balaclava? Should we match?
Oh, I was gonna say, I gotta bring the ski mask. You know, I gotta bring the juicy ski mask matching the juicy tracksuit. Because you gotta flex on them.
Juicy couture ski mask.
No, I actually saw a quite good revived Juicy Couture pink tracksuit the other day, and I felt like I was, watching Tila Tequila's bisexual game dating show.
We're really gonna start our whole podcast talking about Tila Tequila.
Hey, we can edit anything. We
can cut the Tila Tequila 2004 social commentary. Fresh from 2004.
Hey, the reason why I brought it up because it is relevant. Because I don't know if you're aware of any of Tila Tequila's antics and her just complete conflation with every single conspiracy theory out there.
I do recall this from the 2004 lore that Tila Tequila is in fact a conspiracy theorist type, as well as being Tila Tequila,
as well as just being extremely unwell, and obviously that's why she's been reacting this way and yada. But the woman is posing with with honest, not even like concern trolling, but like honest neo-Nazis and yada yada. Everything from the GMOs are bad and aren't actually good, and the chemtrails are real. And the vaccines and the plastics are ruining your penis. It's not the COVID and the long-term effects of that, and yada yada. 1,500 people in this country died.
So I guess a free speech absolutist would say that she has a right to my beautiful 800 follower YouTube channel.
Tila, get on over here, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, honestly, of course, we'd have Tila Tequila on the show.
Oh, we would interview the shit out of Tila Tequila. All of her anti-Semitic ways. She might not, because she's extremely anti-Semitic, and I can pass as a husky Jew.
But I'm actually Jewish, and you look Jewish. So.
I can pass.
Although when I was in high school, somebody said, "Hey, let's go smoke weed with this guy. He has a swastika tattooed on him." I'm like, well, that sounds like not a good idea.
That's a great
I'm Jewish, and what I was told is, oh, he won't care. And I said, that seems kind of hypocritical. It's like, if you don't care that I'm Jewish, then why get the swastika tattooed on you in the first place? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrible. One time, this is the last, and then we're gonna get into free speech absolutism.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this discussion started when I was watching Magnus Carlsen play Blitz chess.
Yes.
And he kind of mumbled, "Oh yeah," it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a free speech absolutist." And when Magnus Carlsen mumbles something, I'm the kind of nerd who then has to think about it, because if Magnus Carlsen said it, trusted #1 chess player, I'm gonna think about it. Like maybe he's right. So I had to think it through. I had to think it through if Magnus said it. But we're gonna talk about free speech and class character and what exactly comes with the free speech discussion. So we'll get into all of that.
And also how it gets used as such a class cudgel in such a significant and like palpable way.
Yeah, exactly.
Class antagonism cudgel. There we go.
I recall unionizing and trying to unionize and free speech being used as an excuse by the head person there. Like, every individual person has the right to negotiate their contract separately. Right?
It's the same thing with that one vegan company, Eat No Evil or No Evil or something. And basically they're cool, hipster, woke union busters. who are just so stoked about getting rid of factory farming and providing a good alternative with their product. And yet they really, why would you guys ever want to unionize? Like, don't we have everything you really need here and yada, yada. Don't you guys really want to just, you know, actually express yourself through our mouths versus going through that nasty little union that you have to pay dues for? I think that's so funny how that's always a talking point. It's like, you know, you have to pay dues, right? Like,
don't you want to play the meme? Don't you want to buy an Epic video game system?
Don't you want to buy Epic video game system?
Yeah, instead of paying your union dues.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Wouldn't you rather do something else? No, it's really interesting. I work with this guy where it's the first time he's ever been in a union before, or ever even like, you know, even ever given a thought to what a union was. He's not really class conscious, just a regular working class guy, you know, who can blame him? And one day he says to me, he's like, dude, it's really crazy working at a job where like I'm pretty protected. Like if they tell me to do something that isn't my job description and I would like injure myself, I can just say no. And I can call someone to like report it. And I can actually, you know, get restitution if I fall and crack my fucking spine in half. And I mean, great. Again, this is the true mover right here. Is all the theory, all the nerd shit, all of the other things aside, you know, the bottom line, the actual work culture that comes along with solidarity and having a non-stagnant union and an actual progressive union that's doing good things, like that right there is the true connector that people who aren't ever going to care about this corner of the internet or ever read an article or a Substack at all are going to have
well exactly. So this is what we're doing. Yeah. I feel like Bomb Squad Psych implies like a certain ontology and epistemology of event, right? Yeah. The ticking bomb. Yeah. Like we're like setting ourselves up like the 24 situation. Although that's more apt for psychology because that's what psychology does, right? Yeah. Psychology addresses crises, clinical psychology. You go to a clinical psychotherapist or a psychoanalyst or whatever for a crisis.
And I really would like to do an episode that actually is on a lot of the like basically just doing a meta-analysis on a lot of the Bomb Squad psychology implemented for the incel community, for a lot of the manosphere.
Adam, so yeah, let me read this. So this incident is from February 9th, which is 3 days ago from this broadcast. I'm going to read a little bit, and then we can do some Bomb Squad Psych TM. We can do some psychology of the event. Does that sound all right?
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Give me that.
News Nation reporter arrested during a news conference after Ohio law enforcement told him to stop his live broadcast. A News Nation correspondent was arrested on Wednesday after he began reporting live during a news conference held by Ohio authorities regarding a train derailment. So basically, they ended up busting into his broadcasting zone and arresting him live at a later point.
Well, he's a rabid criminal. He's right. Just a rabid animal who needs to get silenced. God knows what will happen.
What's the character of this kind of arrest, Adam? How would you describe this event?
I think it's definitely the epitome of the monopoly of force just actually really stomping out free speech versus what free speech, the class antagonism cudgel gets used as. This is the true epitome of that, where they silently, because it's pretty darn silent, are silently just snuffing it out and ensuring that there is yet another silencing that happens. And again, these things are not these things are all interrelated. I mean, look at the variety of free speech silencing that we thought that was long gone. I mean, the Salman Rushdie stabbing that just recently almost happened due to like a 40-year-old fatwa or something or other. And just one has to think, like, if the satanic verses were published nowadays, would it be fine?
well, I think we're not saying simply by doing an episode, there is no such thing as free speech absolutism, that censorship is cool and based, you know. Just to make it clear, I think that might not be clear since we have done quite a few
Actually, that's exactly what I'm saying.
episodes on
Just
on this
simply
channel.
based.
Simply based.
Censorship for the left, simply based. There should never be any Ben Shapiro Pope of
be
the
careful because people
person.
like that. People love that kind of shit. So
You know,
we're not doing that. Yeah. So protection of citizens from government crackdown is important, right? So this is like the basic positive nugget of what free speech is all about. But then you have kind of, speaking of reactionaries and based discourse, you have kind of the direction which free speech absolutism kind of goes, which is the Elon Musk sphere, which is I have the right to basically push right-wing ideology. I have the right to put front and center right-wing news stories.
Of course, that's the epitome of the free speech cudgel being used as class antagonism.
But in Elon's defense, there's the reality of the situation is there's a private monopoly on discourse, and neoliberal pseudo-left neoliberal capitalists have quite a monopoly on public discourse because they own a lot of the platforms. So now you're getting this kind of libertarian right,
the algorithms, yada yada.
Yeah, own platform. But this is not like absolute free speech. I think maybe we can distinguish that there is no absolute free speech. There's kind of the control of the platform, control of the channel, and all we can do is really we can analyze who has control. We can advocate for certain types of speech under certain types of private control, but private control is private control, and there's no overcoming that with language of right and law, right? If I have corporate control, I can, within limits, I can pretty much isolate, alienate people, make excuses to boot them, keep them in, use the language of law. And the reality of the situation is the power that the capitalist class really has, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially the variety of like the PMC not yet owning class variety of people, where they're kind of getting their gear, but they haven't really gone full bourgeois yet. And I really think I think that's the more ideology is the most bare, because that's where they haven't gotten their riches of complete exploitation yet and complete usage of people yet. But they're learning it. They're feeling that, oh, as long as the outcome of all this exploitation that I can have over the fellow workers in front of me, then yada yada, I can get the bag. And I think that is where the ideology is most bare, because meritocracy is finally being discovered not discovered, but finally lifting from the meaning of what they thought it was, where once they thought they were working hard, now they realize that it's obviously just the work of others when they happen to have the property and the faulty equipment or whatever, what have you. I live in Humboldt County in the weed world, so I feel like that's always my perspective of the of the type of exploitation and specific handling of it.
So speaking of this kind of the reality of the situation, so to move from the false idea of free speech absolutism doesn't exist to the reality of the situation, which is the capitalist class has the power to determine what happens in their kind of corporate zone. What did Elon Musk do as soon as he got Twitter? The first thing he started doing is banning people that critique him, right?
I was going to say banning people, making awful jokes, trying to be the most desperate worm ever.
This is the obvious take, but it's really important as kind of evidence to the argument that free speech absolutism is a false transcendental idea, even though Magnus Carlsen. So I'm really thinking this through, and it does take me thinking something through for a month that Magnus Carlsen said just offhand. So I feel like there is I somehow overcame the uber nerd.
See, that's the thing. See, with the Magnus Carlsen thing, I think that's very interesting because I'm very averse to any even the people that I revere, that I think that are great, that I really love. I'm always kind of averse to, oh, they made X decision or they gave me X insight into their process. There's definitely a universal reason why that I just wasn't seeing that I should apply because they're smart and I'm probably less smart because I'm not a grandmaster champion or whatever. And I think that especially the Magnus Carlsen example is pretty funny after him, promoting Getter and promoting just kind of these really
right. I almost forgot about that.
Points.
He did promote the Trump social media
under the pseudo free speech.
I like blocked that out, even though I suggested we need to talk about
that. Was the punchline. That was the punchline for the Magnus.
That was the punchline. I totally forgot that Magnus Carlsen then went on to promote the right-wing Getter Trump aid social media platform.
Because because all people who aren't plugged in and who actually who are not just like, being grinded down or actually reading or doing, things that are actively keeping you in the loop of the workers and of actual non-owning class people and not their just tepid lifestyle they have to go through every single day. I think that people realize that oh wow, maybe Getter isn't the smart decision, and maybe this isn't an extension of my intelligence towards chess. And that's why I'm kind of against all of the master class things. Like don't get me wrong, David Sedaris is a great author, but I don't think that oh wow. Oh, there it is. It just froze out for a second. David Sedaris is a great author, don't get me wrong, but I'm not one of those people that thinks that because a person is so good at something that there is just some universal that can always be gleaned from it if they can just teach it in the most Riley type of way. And that just never sat well with me. And especially for the and I feel like that kind of goes counter to like the Malcolm Gladwell verse of books about everything / nothing styles, where I think Matt Christman described it the best by saying that things that my uncle reads while on the shit NP. But yeah, I think that is also another I think that's also another fun avenue to go down for kind of the free speech absolutism that just gets used like in a really just piss poor way. And again, like Malcolm Gladwell, for instance, who I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
I think we all know what is it? Become an expert, do something for 10,000
hours.
10,000
yada
hours.
yada. Meritocracy is truly there and real. Malcolm Gladwell, aside from just writing, again, I'm very suspicious about any books about everything style of book. And Malcolm Gladwell is just that exact type of person where it's the type of it's the type of author that is designed. I feel like all of his books are designed to just for people to just read one of them, and then that's just their book for the next 10 years, and that's their insights, and that's their this and that, and they don't have time nor care for it. They got their pseudo philosophy.
I farmed out my thinking to the leader of thought, and now that. So one thing I think Bomb Squad Psych should promote, let me know what you think of this, because there's two of us, obviously, is that you can't farm out reflection, because there's lots of concepts which are taken for granted that are self-contradictory bullshit that you really want to believe. For instance, like I really like Ender's Game, and I like Ender's Game because it plays into this individual fantasy where if you're just like epic gamer enough, you'll be put in charge of the world, and epic gamers will take us to the moon and so on, right? I really like intuitively.
Capital G gamer world, baby. We're going.
It is gamer world, and I like intuitively really like that idea. So, like, I understand why people intuitively really like ideas which are in fact kind of shit. So
yeah, I mean,
so Matt, like I would like intuitively, I really like the idea of giving Magnus Carlsen free reign to rule over the world and cast, intuitively, because he's, super epic gamer. But like the problem is he's in this really small kind of petty bourgeois class of high level grandmaster players there is a specific culture. It is kind of like somewhat of a party culture, nerd culture, free speech, epic, edgy culture, right?
I was gonna say, I feel like it's more of like the soft conservative Ben Shapiro. I want to say the thing, but I'll just watch a talk show that talks around it with Brett Weinstein for 4 hours and not really getting to the point, but getting the gist that we should hate X people and it's fun. Like I feel like that's kind of the end result that I've noticed.
Well, when you watch the chess, like in your chess player,
yeah,
they're like leagues above any ability that you'll ever have.
Of course.
So you want to listen to them because they're doing something that you care about at a level much higher than you. So this is like what intuitively puts people into servitude and intuitively makes people farm out their rationality, which is why I wrote the first book about ultimately there's a therapy process that involves you have to destroy therapy itself in terms of you start, the whole point of therapy existing is for outside of the therapy process for life. Like therapy is less than life in general. Like your total life is like a larger thing, right?
Yeah, it's in the same way. Process. It's not in between. And just to give people a little bit of a side, that was your first book. What was it, Zizek in the Clinic?
Right.
Oh, what was it? What's the sub to that?
A revolutionary proposal for a new end game in psychotherapy. I like the long. Feel free to pirate it. I don't care.
Yeah,
in fact, I encourage it. I encourage you to pirate it.
That'll be in the show notes right there. That'll be in the.
Yeah, we can. I'll put the books in the show notes. Why not?
Again, I definitely am in the deindustrialized Rust Belt up here in Humboldt County. It's really interesting. That is an entire 2-episode saga all on its own to go into the actual material interests of this local area and the history behind
the class character. To circle back, we are like a rev psych show, right?
Really, yeah.
I think maybe we're more. I think maybe we're less kind of overall armchair. We're more direct action armchair.
Armchair. Exactly.
Our armchair, we're wearing black, we're not wearing red. This says we're ready to go out there, do some.
I wish we would have both worn a turtleneck as well, so we could have both pulled off the Steve Jobs. Like, man, that'd have been good.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to say a little bit about yourself, Adam? I think maybe people on my channel know who I am. I'm a psych person from LA. I live in the UK now, but I used to work in South Central LA. I've worked all over LA. So Adam, you're definitely the psych appreciator. You do have you have a wide library of psychology knowledge.
I think I have a fair amount of psychology knowledge from just poking around and reading things and yada yada, psych student myself. And yeah, really just from the outskirts of San Bernardino County to there's a cat right there, from the outskirts of San Bernardino County to Humboldt County as I here stand, and currently just really all about my left parasocial relationships.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Maybe this would be a good question to kind of like how for you, how is psych in class character related, would you say?
Well, I would have to say that specifically with working with the community as I've done for quite a few years beforehand, I really got to see how how Northern California is kind of like a social justice industrial complex, as I've heard it been called before.
Right.
That is all about this really this unfortunate, awful means testing, as it usually is, means testing bureaucracy that comes before any care is given to any people, any homeless, any working class, any people who need family care, yada yada, runaway teens, for instance, and working in that, I feel like that really got my interest in understanding how, at like a systematic level, the lack of care and the lack of mental health care for individuals who, for the working class and for the at-risk youth. I think that is definitely what, kind of that lack of care is what funnels the modern incel community to a large degree, because there's obviously no stoppers, there's no markers, which are pretty obvious to anyone who's that unwell and anyone who understands what anyone's online history would actually look like, and how that could tell anything. And I think from my perspective of being I wasn't technically a social worker. I was a youth educator that wore a lot of hats. I think from that perspective of working a few years in that area, I think I got a real interest in, hey, what would happen if I were to actually put down the Kindle and go back to school to really try to do some care and do some work for the working class in psychotherapy. And I like to view that through like the lens of materialism, and just how, again, in how to quote Harriet Fraud, how the landlord raising the rent is a pretty darn good indicator of someone's psyche getting interrupted. And I feel like modern psychotherapy kind of like definitely neglects a lot of material factions that go on and that impact people. And I think that's my interest in that class-based psychology area, is addressing things that really need to be addressed and stopping the manosphere incelverse people and just extremists and literally suicidal and homicidal men in general and people in general from getting to that point, because I think that is a societal ill. As funny as they are to mock, and mind you, they're hilarious. I think that's definitely warrants a huge over strategic.
Well, this is like the current discourse is there's this neoliberal superego, there's the conservative superego. Neither of them are really like good analyses of class or politics or issues like free speech. And then you have kind of the socialist sphere of like clowning on people like this. But there's clearly I think there's clearly a need to establish this branch that's outside of the ideological grasp of neoliberalism and of right-wing discourse that can give people a ground for effective direct action in various situations. Like I said, psych is a smaller category to life, and it will always be that way. Like the therapy process or kind of a crisis intervention when necessary is a subcategory of life. So hopefully by doing this show, we'll be able to get some general psych knowledge, which can free itself from, the neoliberal nonprofit kind of style bureaucracy and this kind of this and the alternative right wing.
I was going to say, because you just said it right there, that they lack their entire. I mean, conservatism lacks a complete class understanding.
And if any right wing person like that's listening, I would also encourage you to look into. Listen to us and try to look for a psych kind of ground, which is beyond what you think is based in cringe, and into this kind of intervention based negative structuralism, right? We've called it before. The negative structuralism of what's the crisis event, what's actually happening here beyond my desire, like I described my own Ender's Game desire of, wouldn't it be great to have this? Well, what's really kind of the class character of what's going on? The whole idea is we're going to give people tools to analyze situations and to
exactly
and to address crises. We're not gonna give a pure ideological. Here's the correct ideology. Then you get your friends to believe in the correct ideology. We'll start taking on these events and specific things, and we're going to talk about what's happening in them.
Exactly. And then I think we can also even go into maybe go into some case studies here and there of in the Johannesson Brunt book. They go into a lot of decent case studies of very specific tailored kind of markers that can be addressed for people who are unwell in that verse and kind of feeling on the slippery slope. So I think that's something that also could be an interesting insight when we're giving not tips, but we're giving tools for people to really evaluate these things on a different level. So,
Yeah.
so something that I think that is always prevalent, and I understand it's like how people make money on YouTube, and that's fine. You got to do what you got to do. A job is a job, and if you somehow grinded long enough and found your way there through this content, then that's completely fine. But I just really hate the side effects of the smug liberal or even leftist, even a biting leftist commentary that takes right-wing conservative articles, videos, hate speech, whatever, at its word, and then, you know, breaks down every slur, every half sentence, every half thought fucking thing, and then they break it down, and they break down, you know, why that isn't an argument and why that isn't good, and why you shouldn't.
What's the alternative, Adam?
And
what's the
alternative is having something more constructive than preaching to the choir. I mean, this isn't fucking new. I mean, this is like even with cable television,
right,
on streaming leftist punditry on the internet. This has always been a thing of just of people being comfortable and not going out, but and not going past the catering to your own audience of, hey, aren't these guys idiots? Which again, of course they are. And if people are still going to continue to hide under the banner of, well, we're doing this for entry level people to find this and just laugh and get a dunk on, and then we're here. It's like, yeah, that could be it, but also I think it's because it's like the easier part of content. It's not video essay
telling people what they already think.
Telling people what they already think, and then finding the people to just make that example over and over and over, which again is valuable. I like that shit. I watch Lance at the Surfs, who breaks things down in a very funny voice. But I'm talking about more of the variety of people who you could tell grew up on watching The West Wing, where they think that a rousing speech and the true universal is going to sway what policymakers and what this country can be, and just the liberal notion that you know, Democrats are somewhere on the left and that they can get us there because yada yada, their interests may be beholden to the oil barons and the media barons, but they'll get us there because Liz Warren and Katie Porter are going to do so. But the last time they did it was the kente cloth, baby. That's when I fucking felt it. No, I mean, like, the most cynical display of anything ever is Nancy Pelosi kneeling with tears in her eyes and like a fist to her fucking face in a fucking kente cloth. Just absurdity.
Jeez, what the fuck is wrong with them? Like, not to sound like, you know, go back to base and cringe, but that is like some serious cringe.
Nancy Pelosi is fucking ridiculous.
That is like deep cringe.
Genuinely evil.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when remember when COVID first happened and everyone stayed inside and sung bad songs with celebrities and fucking like oogled over everyone's house that they had in the background. And Nancy Pelosi had what looked like a restaurant style deep freezer full of ice cream that and it's like, yeah, I mean, yada yada, yeah, I would love that. Who the fuck wouldn't love that? But I just love to see that fucking dalliance and that just like, are you at your own restaurant? Are you, oh, that's connected to your laundry room? Oh my God, just to see this like this ridiculous home that's connected to her, you know, $20 million real estate portfolio, obviously.
Well, I mean, the ruling, I think it's important to realize that the ruling class will only be able to produce a certain kind of knowledge based on the superego imperatives that keep them in the ruling class, the pure competent leader archetype. And this is what happens throughout history, is people farm out their mind to somebody who they trust. Mm-hmm. And I think we're encouraging the opposite thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
both in people that watch this, and also for people that watch this, to also encourage this level of freedom in people they approach about psychology. To not use psychology as a tool of mental health chauvinism, but rather rather to allow you to reflect in this way, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But on farming out your own autonomy in that regard, I think this goes back to something that you and I discussed off the podcast a while ago. But it's that obvious, you know, feature of, not a bug, of farming out your own autonomy and all of the things therein definitely do give you enough pleasure to survive and not kill yourself, but obviously not enough ceiling to be able to have enough energy to, you know, connect and to organize the people around you. And I think that inherent structure of farming out your autonomy for labor, for many other things, this and that fundamental farming out of autonomy, what it does is that it creates such a space for the worker bee to have some sort of deception, some sort of leniency, because if you're working 16 hours a day, there's not going to be someone near you 16 hours a day. You can have some sort of autonomy. You work in an office, steal office supplies. You work at a food place, always take food home. You work at a chemical.
This is Adam's suggestion.
This is just that, in my opinion, any working class person who's worked in a restaurant and who's been starving, or who works at a chemical plant, or works at a fucking, like, whatever the other gruel jobs, seafood plant, or whatever the hell's going on, anything like that, you're taking shit home. You're certainly, what I'm saying is that deception that comes therein with that dynamic of farming out your autonomy, that has side effects. That has side effects that I think certainly do have a lot of psychological measures that I think are interesting to go about, because that, what a lot of people see as, you know, some form of some form of transgression of the power structure. Yeah, you're getting the free thing and you're eating a little more and this and that, but are you not just adding more to the feature of having a little tiny bit more in your 16-hour workday, but obviously not enough for any sort of unionization, or any sort of actually collective action, or emancipatory politics, or anything locally for that matter, or any volunteering for that matter. And I think that's a large thing right there. The side effects of the deception that comes with having some type of job where your autonomy is completely exploited and completely given away. And it doesn't have to be in the laborious way. Office jobs are fucking awful. You know, you work in a fucking boiler room, or you even work in a nice office building where you make barely enough to live in your fucking shit rat hole basement apartment in the city. Like, you know, these are all things that lead people to needing to deceive to even survive. And what I'm saying is that that has side effects. Certainly has side effects on the working class that I think are less than savory, that I think, you know, are interesting to think about.
In terms of this is the requirement that you can't farm out. Sometimes it's more revolutionary, sometimes it's more personal, anarchist, need-based, right? But you just can't, like, farm out that kind of thinking, can you? To a second person. Yeah. The party won't save you.
No, the party definitely won't save you.
Will Conrad save you? When Conrad's ML chairman. I don't know.
Yeah, that won't save you.
Maybe Conrad will talk it out with you. I don't know. But...
Yeah, that'll be fun. We can both wear black, and we can both wear black, and we can both smoke spliffs indoors.
Yeah, there you go.
Together. It's perfect.
All right. I'm being convinced. Adam's now convincing me of something.
We are now entering the convincing zone.
And action. All right.
Premise one. So Horace and Pete is a series by the rightfully defamed, shitty boss, sex pest, sex offender Louis C.K., who just has maybe one of the best tragedy short series that I've seen in a while. I've seen it. I saw it when it came out in 2016. Loved it. I've seen it like 10, 15 times ever since. And it just has a fantastic crew of actors, an amazing story, true material roots in the.
Is this like right when he got canceled? Is this like the last thing before he got removed from the forcibly removed from the Geist? Or how do the ANCAP say it? For what do they say? I think it's forcibly removed from the Geist. He was removed from the Geist, right? So what
happened? So really kind of was, because what happened? So to my knowledge, I think this could be wrong, but I remember reading that what had happened is that it was at some film festival where he was featuring a movie with Edie Falco, who again is on Horace and Pete. We'll get back to that, and And at the film festival, again,
Mm-hmm.
it's showing, it's 2 hours till showing. Louis here, everyone's here, whole cast is here. And something or other happens where this woman, two people, I believe, come forward saying that, hey, he exposed himself to me and like, kind of cornered me in a room and like forced me to watch him jerk off, and it was predatory, and it was he assaulted me. And then that happened, and something or other caught wind, and they didn't feature the movie, and they didn't feature the movie at the fucking film festival, and it got shelved. And I wish I would have looked this up beforehand instead of just freeballing this sign off. But
I'm being convinced of something. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. I'm like
you're also frozen.
I'm groomed. Wait, hold on. No, wait, hold on. No, I'm ready. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're being convinced. So anyway, so the bottom line is that Louis C.K., as we all know, it's my opinion that I can hate Louis C.K., the sex offender and the bad boss and the awful person, with the art that he did make in conjunction with like 100 other people and an amazing cast of people and yada yada. I'm allowed to have a conflicted relationship with art and with Louis C.K.'s yada that isn't just his stand-up.
So is this so what are you convincing me of? That Horace and Pete is a good movie with.
So Horace and Pete, what I'm trying to say is that Horace and Pete is a darn good series. It is a good tragedy that really layers a lot of how gentrification destroys families.
Oh, right.
But mainly what I would say about the series is that it stirs a lot of things in you and then never resolves them. And I think you should keep that in mind while you're watching it. But it's done masterfully. Steve Buscemi, Alan Alda, Jessica Langley, Adie Bryant, Kurt Metzger, fucking Stephen Wright. Like it's amazing. The cast of people is fantastic. The story is amazing. It is about a 100-year-old bar in Brooklyn that is run by a Horace and Pete, and it's been run by 5-6 generations of Horace and Pete's before that, and yada yada. Edie Falco, who plays Louis C.K., Horace Whittle's sister, basically when her father died, there was no will, so common law dictates that the location gets split up between the people, and because of some bylaw, she can basically take ownership and dissolve it. So that's the entire series. Is this woman who is at first trying to dissolve this bar that has 7 generations of abuse and shitty fathers and people dying in this shitty bar, and she just wants to sell it and sell the air rights to whatever whatever hotel wants to build there in Brooklyn, and yada yada. Gentrification wins. So the entire series is that, with really adorable and what's the word, coy interactions at the bar. There's a really interesting scene that I still can't tell if satire or not, that shows these barflies going on about just the most liberal conversation in the entire world of well, you're a conservative, Nick DiPaolo, and you're a liberal, and you don't even like each other, so how could you ever begin to come to an agreement with something? And then another person says, don't you understand? That's all a game. If everyone were to stop buying shit tomorrow, the system would break down, man, and that's it. And if everyone were to care and to literally never buy anything again, we would take it over. That's what the system's for. So after the libs have said their thing and their 3 distinct perspectives, one of them says, Jessica Lange says, well, Hillary Clinton is a cunt, and I'm a liberal. And then they all take a shot. And that's the scene. The scene is pure cringe on every level. And in my heart, I think it's satire.
It's good. It's good to try it. It's good to reflect on an event like you're saying with the. I'm convinced that it's good to reflect on this Louis C.K. show about gentrification, because it's not something
and how it destroys family dynamics.
Yeah, it's not something that will ever be put in front of general public for obvious reasons, which is Louis C.K.'s forcible removal from the Geist.
Yeah, exactly. And he's also just like, I don't know, like he's not getting funnier. Example, this woman, Edie Falco, is literally using common law to extract this business, to dissolve it for her own safety, and also she has cancer that you find out in episode 2, so she's trying to pay for that. But ultimately, what wins? The further gentrification of Brooklyn. I really do like the relevance of it, and how, again, it truly does stir so many things in you and never resolves them, but in such a meaningful way. And Alan Alda and Steve Buscemi really just make the entire series. It is fantastic.
All right. So this has been the first topic-based discussion for Bomb Squad Psych here.
Yes, sir.
Adam,
Eliot,
thank you for joining me in this journey to explore the intrinsic kind of false paths of intuitive ideological desire, which we are charting and reflecting on. So we'll continue to do that.